How's everyone doing? My name is Thomas Price, and this is Lines on the Page, and we are on episode 35 on a kind of slightly dreary, rainy Sunday night, August the 6th. We should probably start doing uh, the dates as to when these things are being broadcasted live, simply because if you just happen to go back and watch these things on YouTube, YouTube doesn't actually state the date as to when stuff has actually been put on. So really, you're just kind of guesstimating how many days, weeks, years, so on and so forth, which is kind of dumb. But you know what? That's just a personal opinion, and it's not going to matter. It's not going to affect anything that we're going to be doing today. So, quick little housekeeping. Haven Comics, located 1871 Slaughter Road in Madison, Alabama. And please remember to like and subscribe, which definitely helps us out, helps me out. And if you want to know where you can find me on social media, you can find me and follow, all that stuff through my link tree at tpriceartworks, which I have just now been added to Threads. And what was the other new one? Blue Sky Social. So I'm expanding into places, which at some point soon I'm going to be putting together a newsletter, which is going to be like a one time a month sort of thing, basically just letting people know, hey, got this event going up, something you guys should probably keep an eye on, stuff that might end up on Patreon, so on and so forth. Jay, how you doing? Miss you, man. All right, so I have been gone for 2 weeks. So when I came back to Haven, I was just kind of met with a bunch of different stuff that was happening at the shop. First things first, last Monday there was a music video that was going on all that afternoon, so I was there for that, and also ended up being a part of it as well. Hey Bill, how you doing? So yeah, basically, there was a music video shot in store on Monday, so I was there for all of that, and then getting back into the swing of things here, giving myself some time to, I guess, rest or recuperate or whatever, because I spent the last 2 weeks finishing basically this pitch that I've been hired to do, which I may have mentioned some of this in previous episodes. I really haven't shown much of anything at all, with the exception of like a single panel or two on social media, not on the show, which I'm not going to be showing those pages here because kind of focusing on this cover for the pitch. But all 10 pages have been posted on my Patreon, and it also includes a synopsis into the pages. In terms of the things that, well, not just that, the character designs for it are there, the storyboarding for all of that is there, and also the actual pages themselves, the line art that is, both just the fully inked line art is up there as well. And so if you want to see that, it is there. If you just happen to be at my table, I will have these pages on me at shows, so you can flip through that. But you won't be getting the little synopsis thing with the pages and some of the stuff that I had to think about with the scripts and try to pull things off. It was definitely very different because it's both a comedy and it's also horror. And well, not really so much like comedy as in like it not like Grown Ups or The Hangover or anything like that. It's more slice of life. It was definitely an interesting process. Reed Beeman, who had on the show earlier this year, he is the writer for it, and he is also going to be the colorist for this pitch as well. And so the script itself is actually quite good. It definitely has some funny moments in it. But he's heard me say this before several times. Pages where we go into like 9, 10, 11, 12 panels on a page, it breaks my brain. um, and I know he's heard me gripe about this, which the only thing I'm really going to say about any of that, because we're going to go straight into this thing, um, is simply the 9 panel thing is still a thing in comics. There are plenty of people that I can think of off the top of my head. A lot of the Tom King, Mitch Gerard's stuff that's come out within the last couple of years, most of that's 9 panel stuff. Pretty sure there's a recent Scott McCloud comic called The Sculptor that has plenty of 9 panel pages. Stuff that Daniel Warren Johnson or James Herron has done, 9 panels or more. So it's not the kind of stuff that I would instinctively do. Basically, whenever I think of anything past that, I'm usually thinking of like double page spread. But within the script and how everything is done, it makes sense because like parts of it has the Watchmen kind of pacing, and then other times, well, actually, there's one page. Actually, no, one panel on one page is kind of David Aha, and then same thing with another one. But anyways, not going to spoil all of that. So the the pitch is called Lilywood. It takes place in South Carolina, modern day South Carolina. It involves a new couple that is finally getting a home because there's nothing more stressful than trying to find a house, buying a house, and then moving in. So there's definitely that. There is a Lovecraftian kind of slant to it regarding amphibians. So I've gone ahead and lightly placed the figures where I wanted to because we had talked about a couple different ideas that we wanted to do for the cover. And so one of my ideas, actually, one of Reed's ideas first is that we were talking about movie posters. And specifically, that's something you really don't see homaged a lot in comics. I mean, you see them every now and then, but even then, it's just super rare. And most of the homages and tributes that you see, it's usually like, you know, ASM 299 and 300, Spider-Man 1, Spawn 1, Amazing Fantasy 15. Uh, I can't remember. Is it the first Superman comic where he's got the car over his head, or is that later on uh, in Action Comics? I don't remember. Anyways, there's just a lot, and of course the George Perez thing where the Crisis cover, because you know you see that with Crisis, and then it kind of gets copied then on. Anyways, see a lot of that. We wanted to stay away from that. So he was talking about movie posters, and one of the ones that he brought up was Jaws. In which case, similar one would be Tremors, just because we were wanting to have the monster kind of come in at some point, mouth open. And so but the thing is that with Tremors and Jaws, they're coming up from underneath the ground, and I was thinking the complete opposite and doing it from the top down. So wanting to do a mash of a couple different things. So first things first, I wanted the two couples that you see in the pitch. They're kind of front and center, but a little bit further down. And so I was thinking about the second run, first issue of Wildcats, and was just kind of thinking about them right here, and then having the Lovecraftian amphibian thing from the top going down. Which, ironically enough, around the time that we were talking about this, Daikuron posted a cover and I can remember if it was for Venom or for Spider-Man. But see if I can share that. Let's see here. How do I do this? Um, okay, add overlay. Here it is. So I wanted to, well, the picture is on its side, but basically this is the photo that I saw that got posted. So again, I'm so sorry that it's on its side. Um, but the idea is creature at the very top of the page, people down the bottom, and then the tongue kind of snaking around. So that was kind of the idea that I was thinking of with that. Uh, and it was just super ironic that we had seen that, and it was just like, well, let's mix these things in together. So I mean, we're still kind of keeping in the concept of uh, creature, showing off the people, and um, still having that marriage of a couple different covers and movie poster, basically. Yeah, it's definitely a lot to take in for sure, but we are definitely going to get onto it. Um, so this may come as a little bit of a shock to some people, but we're not actually going to be inking this at the show, but we are going to be focused on pencils and basically just layouts using different pencils for different things, and basically just talking about anything and everything regarding comics and social media and stuff that's been going on. Um, since I have been gone, not to overly quote, um, it's Kelly Clarkson, isn't it? Since you've been gone, yeah. I don't want to hum the melody because I'll get flagged. Um, but yeah, so I've got that kind of stuck in my head. Um, so in the comic, we got two different couples. We have Daniel and Mia, who are the main ones that we're focusing on. And then we have their neighbors, Luke and Liz. Which the interesting thing is that when Reed was giving me the character um, ideas and what he was looking for, was kind of basing some stuff off of like actual movie actors, and so um, or just the concept and idea of what he had in his head that would be that, and I totally dig that idea. And it's not the first time that that's happened in comics. Uh, perfect case scenario, as far as just like examples, you've got Wanted, uh, even some of the early Ultimates, Ultimate Marvel stuff. But that's when you first got to see Sam Jackson as um, Nick Fury. And it was interesting because that was a complete, I wouldn't say it was a complete fluke, but it worked out for the time. Which, before anyone asks if I have seen Secret Invasion, the answer is no. That was one of the shows I was super looking forward to, aside from season two of Invincible, which I'm still looking forward to that, and I'm definitely going to be watching that. But um, because of the stuff happening with the writers and Screen Guild strike, plus the fact that they being uh, MCU slash Disney cutting corners by doing the whole AI route, and then claiming ignorance on their part that, oh, we didn't know. Uh, that turned me off completely uh, to wanting to see that. And of course, uh, even though that I knew that it was going to be a completely different show from the actual comic, um, even then, uh, heard from a couple of reliable people that it just did not go the way that it was looking as far as the trailer was concerned. So I think I've lucked out on a couple different aspects on that. Uh, anyways, going back to these characters, um, so Daniel is kind of based off of the character Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec uh, before Chris Pratt lost all that weight. So, kind of heavy set. And I took some liberties to how I was wanting to put them together because, we're not doing likeness, but the concepts and the ideas of how we wanted the characters to look like were there. So, and one of the cool things about doing character designs for story is that we get to play around with different kinds of possibilities of how we want these characters to look. And I gave Reed a couple different versions of the same face, basically, between him being Daniel and his wife Mia. Um, so I was wanting to get the okay on that, and this is not a tip. I'm never going to say that. Uh, but something that I've noticed is if you put the idea of it sounds super shady, but there is some actual um, pseudoscience to it. But basically, if you put down the idea of uh, the one that you're actually feeling the most first, and then you put the extras after that, um, sometimes you'll be able to get the choice of character design um, picked, or the one that you're actually kind of rooting going for, which that's kind of what I did. Um, so Reed, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry, man. I had to spill my secret on that. Um, but the reason I'm saying it's kind of a bit of a pseudoscience is because it's kind of a um, what's the terminology? It's basically a suggestion through image, not like image comics, but like a suggestions through images, basically. Um, But if you want to look at it from like a completely different aspect, it can be looked at as putting the best foot forward. And it's basically what I wanted to do. And the other thing about this character is that he has considerably more facial hair than Andy Dwyer, for sure. Now, the other thing that I've kind of had to do uh, when I was doing this is that because this is a um, slice of life comedy with, the Lovecraftian horror aspect, I had to do some stuff with the panels and um, drawing the characters even uh, differently than how I would normally do it. I mean, some of the same stuff, but it was actually drawing these characters a lot looser uh, than how I would normally draw all these characters. So, some ways, it some ways it worked in my favor, and other times I was just like, oh man, it's like oh gosh, what's that Fourth of July video? Uh, Back it up in reverse, Terry. Yeah, that's kind of how it felt like sometimes. I trying to do some of this, but because it was definitely a um, out of my wheelhouse kind of comic, um, I actually had to find stuff that I own from artists that I like that did uh, some comics that were in that, I guess, ballpark of genre. So I was looking at um, some of the most oddest stuff. So I had Adam Hughes's run of Betty and Veronica. I had um, one of the most controversial comics that Terry Dodson did panels for, which was Trouble, and which definitely not for little kids at all. Um, and of course, it is a Mark Millar comic, so you can guess as to why it would be considered controversial. And ironically enough, it is a Marvel comic. Um, but there was a couple of things in that I was looking at in terms of how I want to present the inside of the house, basically, because all of this with those pages dealt with conversations and people in a house and how do you make it interesting. Uh, so I was definitely looking at that. Um, there were a couple of pages from uh, several different Calvin and Hobbes comics that I had lying around. Because some of the best stuff that happens is when he's daydreaming in his house. So, which is like complete, total opposite uh, of everything else. And then, of course, Murder Falcon by Dan Warren Johnson, which even though that's like a super action-packed comic, there was some stuff in that I was getting ideas from. And um, what else? There was a lot of texture work that I had to do. Um, and I was using a couple different ideas. I was trying to think, and there was actually two pages where I was actually just able to let loose, and I wouldn't say go all out, but it definitely felt like it compared to uh, all the other panels that I did. And uh, so whenever I was having to deal with, wood textures and uh, liquid and uh, that very veiny, membraney type skin for some of the horror element of it. Um, I was definitely looking at some stuff that Travis Charest did for uh, the X-Men Wildcat special, The Golden Age, which, if none of you guys have ever read that, I highly recommend it. Um, but there were um, that is not how you grit off the face, Tom. There was definitely some stuff in that because um, the X-Men Wildcats comic, there was some stuff that was in there that I really enjoyed as far as just the texture work. And of course, a lot of people argue, or at least make the argument that that was like probably the most pinnacle uh, thing that ever came out from the late 90s of Image Comics. And not just from Travis, but also from Jim Lee and Adam Hughes. And I forgot the guy who did the Dark Ages. Um, which Travis was actually supposed to do Dark Ages, and um, actually, I think he may have done the first like 3 pages of that. Um, but do not quote me on that. I actually would have to find my copy of it. Just why I'm going face like this. Um, it's just really bad when you have to go back to your own character designs. Um, but uh, there's stuff in there in terms of like how he rendered, wooden panels and well, first off, it takes place in World War II. Uh, so seeing how he does wooden panels and stone and metal, it's absolutely breathtaking. All right, so Daniel's wife Mia is concept idea from that was again Reed, and she is based off of the actress. Hope I pronounced her last name correctly, Stephanie Sue, um, who is a Chinese American actress. I know I've seen her in something, just don't remember what. Uh, and of course, Luke is based off of Matthew Modine's character from Full Metal Jacket, uh, but I kind of accidentally made him look a little Steve Roger-ish because I mean he's a physiotherapist for the army, so I mean I guess it kind of worked out in the end. But and then Luke's wife Liz, which this is the first time I've ever having to draw a pregnant woman, specifically one that's like 8 to 9 months. Um, so having to learn how to do that was completely new to me. And there's also a dog that uh, Daniel and Mia own, and I haven't drawn uh, many dogs in general, but are just dog breeds. So having to do a rat terrier mix came out of the blue, and I had to. One of the things when doing the concept stuff with the dog was is that I was not wanting a cartoonish looking dog. Because this isn't Disney. I wasn't going to Disney buy it. Um, but I wanted to definitely show some scale between this dog because it is a small dog, but you don't want the dog to look, you know, tiny. So I had to basically draw the dog and scale it against Daniel to show Reed what it would look like if, say for instance, there was a page that, if the pitch got picked up, and let's say there would be a page where Daniel is having the walk the dog, then I would at least want to show that. Um, and if an editor was wanting to know, uh, you know, can you draw, a guy walking his dog, but it's got to be this kind of dog, then kind of show it. Um, but there were like little detail things that I wanted to make individual between characters. One of the most interesting things that I did, as far as just kind of separating the characters a bit, is that I was looking at the possibilities of, can you tell a character is his character from a silhouette? So I there were a couple of pages where I tried to do silhouettes of these different characters, and so you could tell this is Daniel. Well, that's going to be Luke. This is Liz because she's got a ponytail and a baseball cap on. That's Mia because her hair's down, and you might show like the whites of the glasses, basically. Um, but it was just stuff like that where I was just trying to figure out the best way to show that you can make a character recognizable from just a silhouette alone. But so yeah, Luke is based off of his character design is based off of Matthew Modine when he was super young in Full Metal Jacket, but a lot taller and a lot stronger from how I drew him. And then Liz is based off of, oh, crap, what's the name of that actress? Oh goodness, again. Do, 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 do. Oh, that's um, Gina Rodriguez. That's the name. Not to be confused with Michelle Rodriguez, although that would equally be just as cool. Um, Another interesting thing was just trying to figure out, I guess, the fashion for the characters. Um, and I think I may have stereotyped Luke just a little bit because it kind of reminded me of a couple of physiotherapists that I've met uh, when I used to work in a hospital. And of course, those guys, well, one of them was former military. Another one, I think the other one was in the military, or I don't know, I can't remember, but they both look the same. So I, totally clean cut look. And all did. Okay. Let me get that idea down. All right. Sorry, guys, I'm talking to myself just a little bit. So another interesting thing uh, that I also had to figure out when drawing Luke was I had no idea what the hair color was that Reed was choosing specifically for him, but I just kind of went ahead and decided I was going to make him a blonde. Simply because I'm dealing with three other characters that were either brunette or uh, raven haired. So it just kind of made sense to break the mold a little bit and have them be blonde. And I like the fact that I did that because it also gave me an excuse to render uh, blonde hair. Something that I don't do often, or just a light hair color in general. Uh, And one of the things I'm going to be doing right here is having him hold a flashlight, and I want to be making this area basically kind of be the light, kind of beam refracting whatever. Um, so that it's just kind of like shining straight at your face. So it'll be covering up that hand right here, and of course it's going to be kind of going out a little bit this way as well. So the purpose of using an HB pencil, uh, like what I'm using right now, um, is to basically just lightly uh, put down these lines so that whenever you are about to do some heavier lines, you're not going to be stuck in a situation where if you accidentally make a mistake that you can't erase from. Excuse me. But I like using softer lead like this. It's really not even lead, it's graphite, but like using a softer line weight like this so I can kind of get an idea of how I want it put together. Which I will admit, because of the tongue, it is going to be draping in front at the very front and curve over this way. So I hate saying this, but I am going to be kind of pulling a Rob Liefeld. I'm covering up his feet. All right. Good question, Jay. How often do I get asked to draw new ideas, things you never considered drawing before? A lot of the people that I have been getting those kinds of requests are from little kids. Like, I wish I was joking, but I'm not. So, like Free Comic Book Day or at my table at conventions, I usually like to do free sketches for kids under the age of 12. Um, every now and then there will be like one kid that just cannot make up their mind because it's option paralysis. Um, and so I try to do my best to try to maybe whittle it down a bit uh, or help direct the path maybe. Um, but yeah, little kids definitely. It definitely keep me on my toes. Of course, I am going to get some requests that are just like run the mill Captain America, Spider Man, Batman. I had one kid. He didn't want Captain America. He just wanted Captain America's shield. That's what he wanted me to draw for a free sketch. So I did that. Um, so yeah, those are definitely the more interesting ones that I've gotten. Let's see, for the it actually was not Free Comic Day because I didn't get any chances to do any free sketches for little kids because I got slammed with doing sketch jams all that day, and I had to take some of them back with me to finish. But on at the Huntsville Expo, I was asked to draw a rainbow unicorn. I've never done. So I basically uh, kind of took the idea from a piece that I did, which is Deadpool kind of dressed up like Teddy Roosevelt, but he's riding a rainbow unicorn. So I took the rainbow unicorn from that and kind of transferred it over instead of just like legit drawing a horse. Um, not saying that I couldn't do that, but it was just like was just wanting it cutesy basically. Um, so there was that. I've never been asked to do Toothless before, and I got asked to do Toothless. I had some kid. This was at Low Mill, um, and he wanted me to draw the Twitch and the YouTube icons, uh, or logos or whatever as people. That one threw me for a loop, and that took me a lot longer than I care to admit for a free sketch. Which it also didn't help that his I'm assuming parents, guardian, whatever, uh, they were being a little bit bossy instead of waiting on him, which of course the the family members definitely had a Slavic accent. It was very heavy. Um, but yeah, so little kids, they definitely keep me on my toes with the things I just normally wouldn't think about or normally get asked to do. So that definitely keeps me on my toes. Some of the drawing prompt stuff that I've done has definitely kept me on my toes. For instance, the anime one that I did in May, um, just taking characters, some of them that I hadn't even drawn before, and some that I definitely have, but my style has changed over the decades drastically from when I first drew them uh, back in like middle school or high school. Um, and so yeah, that was definitely something interesting that I kind of put myself on my toes. One of the things I definitely liked about the character designs for this pitch, you know, I love the fact that Ree kind of gave me an idea as to what I was wanting, or sorry, what he was wanting to do for the characters, which it wasn't about photorealism, it wasn't about likenesses per se, but it was just like let's get it to that ballpark. And um, as far as I know, I was hitting home runs with that. Um, and so I definitely love the fact that he instilled enough faith in me that I could get the job done. Even though it took 2 months longer than I would have wanted to, but life happened, and I really was needing to get this done. So that is another topic, which this is actually a topic that I want to say Bill had asked me a while back, and it was about time management, um, which has never been an easy thing for me. Partly because I still deal with ADHD uh, to this day. Um, there's no cure for that. But this is something that I've been diagnosed with since I was a kid. I didn't take any actual medication for it until I think it was around the end of my sophomore year in high school. Uh, so I was definitely on it my junior and senior year until probably my freshman year of college, and then I just did not like how it made me feel. I did not like how it made me think. So I basically just quit that stuff cold turkey, and it took probably uh, you know it wasn't like 9 day you know like detoxing out of the body kind of situation. It definitely took at least a month or two before things started shifting. But I told myself when I made that decision that if I do this, then um, I've got to be better with my time management. I've got to do stuff differently. So, but yeah, so being in my mid to late 30s. No ADHD medication, and definitely 0 out of 10 don't recommend. Best way of uh, describing that. So I don't think I've ever really mentioned this, but these kinds of poses, which I've drawn enough, you know, characters with swords or a couple of Star Wars characters, Jedi or Sith. That this kind of pose that Daniel's in right now is actually pretty easy, but like the ones where regarding Mia and Luke goes back to the days of growing up and um, reading Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew, uh, which we had um, at the house. We probably had more Nancy Drew books than we did Hardy Boys books. Any Hardy Boys books that we got was checked out from the library, including the 90s, well, late 80s, early 90s reboot stories as well. Which there was one where I accidentally spilled a chocolate milkshake from McDonald's on, and it was a trip coming back from my grandparents' house from Lagrange, and mom had made a sharp turn, and that just went bloop. So, um, but anyways, it's just these kinds of poses is just something that has been ingrained in my brain. Uh, from just seeing those characters in these poses. So it's just always kind of there. But even though that I've seen these poses so many times, I still need to double check my work because I'd rather do that than not at all. So yeah, those are definitely the ones that have kept me on my toes. Which I think it was I forgot the name of the host of which I know that Cosby did the reboot of the same show, but there was the original, and of course Tiffany Haddish um, recently, but the original show, Kids Say the Darndest Things. And that's basically what I felt like anytime I would get a request from from a kid, and it was just like out of the blue. So even though it is a little bit of a dorky pose that I've got Luke in, he is in some ways protecting his wife. Um, and of course, I mean, she is, with child in the story. So it just kind of makes sense to have this hand in front. Which I'm not actually liking the pose that I've got for this hand. So after I get these characters dropped in and a little bit more with the amphibian frog, toad, lizard, monster. Um, we'll be dropping in some heavier pencil lines, which will also dictate some of the line weight for this. Um, so one of the things that I've um, had to figure out really quickly when doing these characters repeatedly, which there's a lot of like pulled out kind of shots when I was doing these panels. Um, and some of the stuff I had to figure out was just almost kind of like creating my own language, was just trying to figure out the best and easiest ways to draw these characters repeatedly and have them all be individuals. And considering that I had two characters with two different styles of glasses, so having to, remember and repeat those, remembering who has a watch on which arm, um, if they happen to have one, and uh, with Liz, just drawing a baseball cap. And well, there's several characters, like all the movers had baseball caps. So just having to draw that in various different angles repeatedly. Which I think is probably the most I've ever drawn any characters with baseball caps. So I hope I hope no one from the MLB asked me to do a baseball comic because I'm probably going to say no. It's no offense to Major League Baseball. It is America's pastime sport, but I would rather leave that in someone else's more capable hands. So I have no idea what any of you guys are, uh, if you are avid comic readers and or buyers. Definitely, I've got a few that currently reading. Uh, I definitely need to catch up with Deaf Dealer and Wildcats because I am quite behind. I just haven't had the time to sit down and read them. Uh, but as far as just newer stuff in the pull list, um, highly recommend Void Rivals because that's setting up the new uh, Transformers and GI Joe stuff. It is a bit of a standalone comic, but so far 2 for 2 hasn't missed. Definitely enjoyed it. Um, Ultimate Invasion. I know I've read one, have not read two yet. Today, I actually did get to read the new Conan the Barbarian, which, if you guys missed out during Free Comic Book Day and getting issue 0, definitely recommend you hunting that down. Um, Delator, uh, don't remember his first name. That's his last name. The artist, his art style is somewhere in between John Buscema and Frank Frazetta. Uh, Jim Zub, who has been doing the D&D comics for the last, God, 10 years, I think. Um, he's doing the story. So it sets kind of in a standalone situation, but it is in between points of time of like actual stories that Robert E. Howard has done. Um, but Delator's artwork in this is fantastic. I don't remember the person who's doing the colors, but they did a fantastic job with that. So definitely recommend that comic. Um, I did get the new Rocketeer. I haven't sat and read that one yet. I know that Barnstormers 2 came out. I haven't read that one, even though it's not on my pull list. I did read issue 1. It was really good. The one that caught me off guard was actually about 2 weeks ago. The Hunger in the Dusk. Um, really interesting fantasy world building. Um, I I follow G Will. Gosh, I'm gonna butcher her name. G Willow Wilson on social media, and I knew about this comic for probably the last 8 months. But I thought it was like a Kickstarter. I had no idea that it was actually going to get released, and so uh, when I saw that it was hitting the shelves, I was just like, "Whoa!" So I sat and read that before opening the store one day, and I was just like, this is good stuff. Poses a lot of questions. Because nothing, uh, catches you off guard than reading a fantasy comic or a novel. Right, and science fiction would do the same thing, but it's just like you're reading it, you're immersed in it, you understand everything that's going on, but there's like certain things that get like name drops and stuff like that that you're just like, that sounds cool. I want to know more about that. Watching Star Wars for the first time was exactly the same thing. It's an easy enough, you know, the original trilogy, is easy enough for you to follow, but when people saw Boba Fett for the first time, everyone's wanting to know who is Boba Fett. And so I think there was a magazine or something like that where someone had, this is before uh, it was official that, uh, Mandalorians, who they are, and all this sort of stuff. And someone wrote that Boba Fett was a Jedi or had force powers or something like that, but it uh has not been revealed yet or something like that. It was something really cookie. And I'm like, oh man, that article did not age well. Um, but yeah, so that was interesting uh thing to see. All right, almost done with all of this. Then we can move on to the thing that cannot be named. And no, I do not mean Voldemort. Speaking of Voldemort, Harry Potter, saw a skit that was just randomly circulating on, uh, gosh, I don't know, it was Facebook maybe or Instagram. I get a lot of like, well, first off, Alan and I like to send each other reels all the time. So it literally becomes something that just like kind of like hazily washes over me because I can never keep up. Um, and of course, I do admit sending a decent amount of reels to a couple of people. But thinking Skeletor. I'm actually, since you had mentioned the whole things uh get asked to draw, never been asked to draw anything regarding Masters of the Universe. Never have. So that's a little interesting, and I'm just like anxiously waiting for that to happen, so someone could be like, "Draw Skeletor." Um, see, I'm actually going to be getting a stencil real quick, and those probably not it. This, right. But so, anyways, Sket talking about Harry Potter in general, and the whole thing was just like, you've got to have some issues if you're it's just you gotta have some issues as an adult if your nemesis is a child. And of course, now that those movies have been out for um I forgot how long, since definitely House has been out. It's definitely since maybe 2010, 2012, somewhere around there. That sounds about right. But yeah, it's definitely one. It's definitely something that I've often thought about every time that I have ever rewatched those movies. I'm just like, you know, got to be a chump. All right. Okay, so I have loosely put those characters there, hoping I can get all these pencils done by the 2 hour mark. We shall see. So, one of the things I actually had to learn quickly how to do was draw tree frogs. So that is something that kind of becomes a bit of a staple in the story. Before you ask, no, I'm not an expert at drawing tree frogs. In fact, I don't think I have drawn any frogs whatsoever in my entire life until I had to do this pitch. So, uh, well, thank you for putting me in a interesting situation, Reed. Um, which I'm going to quickly look at a reference for, yes. So with actually, I might have to enlarge this eye. So on top of having to draw a specific kind of dog breed. Also, I had to learn how to draw frogs. So that was interesting, to say the least. And actually, I probably can share this story. So in the scripts, when it gets to page two, um, there is a fly that gets introduced in which there is a frog that ends up killing the fly uh, in very grotesque fashion. That's all I can really say about that. But uh, when I was reading the scripts and I was kind of trying to envision um, when I was trying to do the storyboarding of the scripts for sending the storyboards off to read, um, I was thinking back to it's a bit of a nod to Men in Black because when you watch the intro credits of that movie, you're following a bug and to the end of the credits in which the bug ends up dying. So I thought to myself, just like, you know what, this would be a perfect opportunity to do something like that because I haven't seen any comic that does anything like that. I don't even think there's any other movies I can think of that have done a similar type of intro like that. So it's just like, you know what, this would be a good nod uh, to Men in Black, and then kind of went with it. And I, awesomely enough, Reed was totally down with that. So I'm like, yes, let's do this. The interesting part is that it's in the storyline. It's American tree frogs, which there are like who knows how many different types and versions of tree frogs that are out there. So um, I had to search around a bit just to make sure that I even found exactly what I was trying to look for. And then even more so interesting is just having to draw um, tree frogs, but make them Lovecraftian. Oh gosh. So that was interesting. So with a lot of frogs, they have this really peculiar type of iris, basically, that sometimes whenever it's dilated, um, it has a very peculiar eye shape, and then of course, um, it can basically just expand itself. I mean, no different than any other animal or mammal. So it's definitely interesting to see uh, all the different types of little things with the eyes that a frog can do. All right, so that kind of gives off the shape. Let's back up and quickly focus on the tongue real quick. I want to get this shape down, in which this is not going to be a normal frog tongue whatsoever. Go figure, right? Let's see what else. I have not seen Barbenheimer yet. That is on the list of things that definitely want to do. Uh, it's a tree frog component to the overall plot. It is part of the plots of several different things that are going bump in the night that I know so far. So the pitch itself, like any pitch that ends up getting sent to any company, it's usually at the very least 5 pages. In this case, it's 10 with the editors that we're sending it to see who's going to pick it up. Which the people that I've talked to and Reed has talked to, they are interested, and so it's just a matter of seeing the actual product itself, and then for them to make the decision afterwards. So this is a uh, story basically that we're hoping that it does pick up and go somewhere. Uh, so all that I can say for sure is that uh, more likely it's one of many different things. So I will say, Jay or James, um, if you want to see the pages for yourself, they are on my Patreon, or if you just happen to catch me with my portfolio on me, they will be in there. Yes, foreshadowing for sure. Uh, so one of the things I've learned from um, looking at Travis Charest's stuff is, like I said earlier, his use of texture, and it is something that definitely aiming to really push myself to do more, which is interesting because whenever I look at the music that I've done with a lot of bands, some of the parts that I've written songs and stuff like that are very textured. So, um, but I think the only difference is that it's so much easier for me to do texture musically quicker than it is for me to do texture visually. So, for instance, I'm going to go ahead and pull this out so you can see exactly what I'm talking about with regarding texture, um, at least in a organic sense. Uh, da, 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 trying to see what would be the best. Okay, yeah. So if you look at the skin on uh, Marlowe's body, which in this storyline he is basically kind of turned into a gremlin of sorts. But you can see all that texture that is on the skin to give it a kind of a different kind of look. Uh, person that kind of does it at very uh, upsettingly um, types of values would be Frank Quietly. He makes skin on people. It's pretty gross, especially when he starts drawing like old people or um, I think there was one that he did of the penguin. I know there's one that he's done of the Joker. It was from that Dark Knight 3 run. And it's just the texture on that face is ugh, nightmare fuel. Anyways, so how we're going to do this is that we're going to be splitting off uh, the kind of texture on this tongue in two different sections because the underside of a tongue has a really weird looking texture versus the texture that's on the top of the tongue. So I'm going to do that. So how we're going to do it is, and by the way, I will be posting the line art for this after I get done with it on social media, so it won't be hidden away behind Patreon. However, if you want to be able to download a high res version of this, that will be available on Patreon. So, um, options, you know. All right. So, how we're going to do this is these really almost back and forth lines. Now, the interesting part is that it's kind of like, it's almost like multiple folds. But when we start dealing with, you know, heavier line weight, certain parts will be expanded upon versus others. And then, of course, when I ink this, I'll be using some white ink to create the effect of saliva glistening, stuff like that. Make it look gross. So give off the idea of that kind of line weight. So like right here. So that's to basically kind of get, a bit of an idea as to where I'm going to be going with that. Now, with the underside of the tongue, down here is where it's going to get just as gross. And make sure that I'm it's almost kind of like lipids, nodules. I honestly wish I had a different type of camera for the drawing cam instead of using my cell phone, so I can be able to zoom in for you guys so you can see it instead of just like having to manually move this all the way back down and back up again, which has not worked out in the past. Quickly go back to our intrepid characters. sure that I'm doing this line correctly. The hardest part about doing giant group stuff like this, especially when all the characters have been bunched up, um, is basically just trying to remember who is where, and the whole spot black situation. And the weird part is that there is a moment where sometimes the least amount of detail is going to give off the most amount of detail, especially with the characters being shrunk down to this kind of size. one of the trickiest poses I've ever had to do with legs. Which I'm going to drop back down to softer lead. Okay. I think they got it. Come back to that in a moment. Lord. more and more I draw this, the more I start to hate the pose. I think part of it looks like he's just got the P dance going on because of just how the legs are angled that way. So I think to remedy this so that he doesn't look like he's got the P pants dance thing going on. Drop this leg back. So I still want to have that forward angle, uh, the knee bent. Yeah. Usually give them 2 seconds. Sort of, not really. You are above the ankle though. Drop them down a bit. So Liz, being 8 to 9 months pregnant, is obviously wearing some form of like sweatpants, yoga pants, whatever. So, which all of the artwork that I've done so far, aside from the character sketches, has been belly up. So, all right. At least got that one. So, move back to El Reptilio. Reptilio? Is that how you say reptile in Spanish? Oh, it's technically an amphibian, less of a reptile. But anyways, I'm not a doctor. I don't know science. Speaking of science, I've been watching Fringe for the first time. I so far definitely been enjoying it. Uh, it is definitely a J.J. Abrams show. That is for sure. Um, which, if I remember correctly, I want to say Abrams did Alias as well. Just think about TV shows because I know the last couple of things that he's done has been the Star Trek reboots with Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto, which I've enjoyed those. Uh, Stands to reason that Carl Urban is the best choice for Bones. Can't think of anyone else playing the part. But I've really enjoyed French, just because it definitely hits that interesting part of um, science fiction, and I, there's definitely some horror elements in some of the stories, or episodes, I should say. And I think I'm about episode 16 or 17 of season one. Um, and I also started watching Haven. No relation to no relation to Haven Comics whatsoever. I did start watching that, and it's been all right. It hasn't really kept my, even though I did end up in season two, it just really hasn't kept up my um, focus when working or doing anything else compared to French. Um, but I've definitely enjoyed French so far, and even is amazing. I gotta keep going. Um, at some point, sure. But like I said, I'm technically already in season two of Haven, and things get trippy on that show. I mean, things were already getting trippy in that show, which I think certain things might be better in context if I have read uh, that Stephen King story, The Colorado Kid, um, because apparently the show is linked to um, Stephen King, uh, which I didn't realize that until I had noticed in the credits. I mean, it has been entertaining. Don't get me wrong. Um, but as of right now, I've definitely been enjoying Fringe more. And I think part of that just has to deal with just the X Files ness, without it being too, well, at least right now, without it being too lost in itself. Which I'm sure at some point it will definitely get to that. But it has kept me guessing in terms of uh, people's allegiances or even like little Easter egg stuff going on. So there's like this like watcher type of character. Of course, he has to be completely bald, clean shaven, no eyebrows whatsoever, little to no expressions whatsoever. And I think it's, if I remember that episode correctly, which I had that episode playing on the TV here at the store, and I was, talking with customers off and on, bringing customers up. So I missed out on some explanation, but it sounded like this character like has no age or anything like that, or he's just completely ageless, but has been, watching uh, things happen in human history or whatever, and um, so very much like Uatu, uh, but what's interesting is that he has been, uh, even though that episode that he had showed up in was probably about maybe, I don't know, episode 5 or 6 or something like that, he has technically been in probably as early as episode 2. And so it's one of those, like, you blink and you miss it. Like I've noticed, and I forgot which episode it is, but there's an empath that they find, a kid basically that's been holed up in this derelict building for uh, technically for decades. But so the age of the kid is, he might actually be a lot older than that. But there's a scene at the very end of the episode where he's being driven away in a car, and notices out the window, sees the Watcher. In the following episode, after that, which I think is the episode that I'm on right now, there's a news. Oh, sorry, no, it's the episode before that. There's a whole news thing regarding wild animal attack and all this sort of stuff. And you see the Watcher walk by in the news broadcast. So it's just like little stuff like that where I'm just like, now I have to hunt and find them and all that sort of stuff. Um, so I've really enjoyed that. Okay, so I am actually getting to the point where my phone is about to die. Um, and this whole thing with just dealing with the texture, with the tongue, and all that is going to take me a lot longer than I care to. But so far, uh, we've gotten basically all of this done so far. So we've got the two couples done, which, all the stuff as far as just like inking and all that sort of stuff, that'll be done this week. And you guys will definitely see final result of this later on. So yes, the men in press suits. Basically, yeah. His character, it's hilarious that I should even think of this because it did happen. So that same episode that this Watcher character shows, there was a commercial break that happened, and of course, it was showing like all these different movies that are like Amazon Prime. One of them just happened to be The Adjustment Bureau, which involved men in press suits. Um, so I thought that was kind of interesting to see that little parallel happen. All right, so uh, anyways, like I said earlier, phone's about to die, so we are going to be cutting it right here, right now, unfortunately. Uh, Final version of this will be posted on social media. The high-res file for this will be available on my Patreon, should you want to happen to get this. I know that um, Reed will definitely be putting colors to this as well. So the color version of that will also be available on my Patreon once I get that. So all that being said, thank you guys for watching, chiming in, whatever. I wish I could go with this a lot longer, but uh, battery life is battery life. Anyways, so we're going to end all this with some housekeeping stuff. Per usual, Favorite Comics, located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And please remember to like and subscribe. Every like, subscribe, follow, share, comment. That helps us out a lot, not just within the YouTube page, but also on the Facebook pages as well. And on the same side, it also helps me as well when you do it to stuff that's on my social media. So please like and follow me on social media. My handle is at tpriceartworks, which you can see that at the very bottom. Which I don't even think you can see the cursor, but it's right there. So as of right now, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, the second Instagram thing. Also on Mastodon and Hive. Unfortunately, the Derelict Tumble and the now on Blue Sky Social, which is also a new one, and even also on the Extreme Wasteland that is Twitter/X, whatever the heck that is. All right, so that being said, this will get posted. I am going to be posting up next week's show later this week. So if you haven't get an invite for that, that will be there. Hoping to get a interview with a specific comic person on our show at some point this fall. I am definitely excited for that. In which also in September we will be doing the next daily prompts, which the artwork for that will be for sale as well. So that being said, I hope you guys all have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next Sunday. Laters.